So basically this is a sort of diagram of our ecosystem, which I put together just last week to show to an organisation that's looking at a kind of commercial partnership with us. And as you can see, there's two key things at play is the US and Australia. So obviously Australia, we have our AFSL. We can do Section 708 funding. We just finalised a deal yesterday. A private
I just asked you a question on that because I've got a client in the middle of that. They take their documentation to you and you charge a fee for raising the capital. You're going to your investor database?
Under Section 708?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can certainly talk to them. What we're working on at the moment too is an actual platform that allows a Section 708 to utilise our infrastructure, and that would be everything from, you know, showcasing the deal with the application process, AML, KYC, investment, and we also have the capability to do loans, etc. So we're just finalising that tech at the moment, and then all the way through to pushing it through to the share registry, taking payment on their behalf or whatever they want. So we're just finalising that at the moment, and that would be a flat fee. So a company would come to us. We're happy to show it in, but we're not guaranteeing anything from our investors. But we say, okay, here's the infrastructure because you should be doing it properly. You know, you should be using a KYC AML facility, right? And then you really should have a decent registry. And that's why I wanted to show you through the registry. So we'll have two components, one where we can show it into our people, and obviously through the FinClear network that that whole wealth management side's building, and there's a lot of high net wealth sitting in that organisation. And as I said, we finalised a deal yesterday. It was only $250,000 raised, but we got it away pretty quick. So I'll show that'll come through on the site next week. Really interesting business. Then we've obviously got our advisory services, which just is around supporting businesses with strategies, financial modelling, marketing, media, any sort of documentation. We're not that keen on doing offer docs, etc., but we're happy to do it. We've done a few of them now, but you know, it's not what the business we want to be in. We want to be more in the sort of the infrastructure side, and certainly on the marketing and media side. And then over in the US over here, we're underpinned by Stacks Capital, which is our broker dealer. We focus more on the Reg D 506C offering, and that's primarily with real estate and private equity. The real estate is really, you know, it's not just about capital appreciation. So these projects are normally a term, might be 5 years, and they're really focused on revenue as well. And you can imagine in the US right now that you can see real estate, although it's always been strong, it's probably going to come to the fore again, because that's what investors are after. They really want some, you know, income coming out of their investments, and also looking at private equity. So you can't operate in this space unless you're underpinned by a broker dealer. The other big opportunity is Reg A, which is coming to the fore now, but I'm not going to go into, it's a lot to talk about, so we can delve into that deeper if you want. And then in the middle of it, the way we look at it operating is a centralised platform management. So we manage both platforms. The compliance side, etc., in the US kind of takes care of itself, and I'll explain how. So obviously platform management, any tech development, marketing across both countries, and also the due diligence. So Stacks Capital really are the compliance arm of our FUNDSITION platform in the US, whereas we are on the other side. And then our partner CoreConnex, which I'm going to go through the cap table today. They're our kind of tech partners, so they're the ones helping us build out that 708 platform. They're the ones providing the cap table registry service to us. They also look after the regulatory requirements for the US. Okay, so, and they're also connected into a very extensive broker-dealer network that are using their platform. So they're kind of a core tech partner for us. And we're kind of really taking the reins in Australia with those guys. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an understanding. Obviously, the investor sits up here. So ultimately, we want to be able to show US accredited investors into deals we're doing in Australia, and vice versa, sophisticated investors in Australia, showcasing in some of these deals that we're putting together in the US. Obviously, as you know, with crowdfunding, we can cater for retail customers, which ultimately would also work at a Reg A opportunity when we finally get to that Reg A section. But at this point, you can see that this sort of trans-Pacific flow is definitely going to be more focused on sophisticated accredited investors, and then the crowdfunding down here. So that's kind of what we've put together. And then what I want to do is just show you the cap table management system. And the idea with this was that we're using this for the US, quickly realised that they could cater for a multitude of countries. So they've got clients in the UK, etc. In fact, Brewdog Brewery, which you would know about as probably the biggest crowdfunder, they actually use their platform to manage all their investors. So one of the good things is as you go through the process and the KYC, AML is conducted, investor suitability, when the raise is successful and it sits on this platform, the asset is actually tokenized. So it sits on blockchain. These guys have used Hyperledger Fabric. So they've created their application to sit on top of that. So what you're doing is you're really preparing for a secondary market when it comes into play, which a lot of registries don't do that, haven't done that. And we saw that as an opportunity. Yeah. So I'll explain to you how that works. So basically you'll be able to come in through the FUNDSITION platform. And what we're saying is, well, if you've got under 20 investors, you can use the platform for free. Okay, I think you'll like this because it's something you can share with your accountants, etc. So you can use the platform for free. Look, if you've got maybe 15 investors and you need some help and you're thinking about an actual registry service, well, then you can talk to us. Because as you know, Pete, there's a difference between running a cap table and actually running a registry service. So the registry service, you need to make sure that you have that API integration with ASIC so that you can actually, anytime there's a change in your registry, that is immediately updated in the ASIC records. Okay, and that's something that we're working with CoreConnex at the moment to implement that. But at this stage, we're just saying, hey, here's a really good system. Go and use it. My brother's company, Grant, Light U Docs, we're putting their system on. I've put a few other clients on, and then we'll also use this as the system for crowdfunding that we put through in any Section 7 or 8 deals. So you got Nigel Abbott, basically. Here's my personal dashboard. The great thing about this whole system, Peter, is that it's all integrated. And what I mean by that is that, okay, so let's say I raise money and I have 25 investors, and Peter, your entity is one of the investors. You'll get pinged, right, so that you can go in and have your own personal dashboard. But the nice thing is then if you've got other companies and you want to load them into the system, you're free to do that. Okay. So yeah, so here's my personal dashboard. You've got all your settings, what's your portfolio. Obviously, Nigel, because I use an entity, there is there's no personal investments. So the companies that sit in here are Fern Kent, which is my self-managed super fund, SME Crowdfunder, which I'm managing, and FinClear. So there's two options. Someone can actually manage this on their own, or they can get us to manage it for them. So obviously from a crowdfunding perspective, we would manage it for them until a certain time that they're comfortable to go and manage themselves, or they can ask us and we'd do an annual fee to manage it. And there's a reason why, because we have an investor relation function built into this. So what would happen is someone would pay us a monthly fee so that they could use that. And if you've got 100 investors or whatever, you're probably wise to use it. The other good thing about this too is, let's say if we go into my personal profile, here's my details. You've got work history, payment information. That's if you're using the platform. So the KYC is really good too. So you can actually upload any of your details, being your driver's license, passport, etc. Right. And the nice thing about that is if you do a second investment, all of that's already there. So it already knows you, it's already done the KYC. Yeah. Okay, so let's get into this. Here's a mock-up we've done. So this is SME Crowdfunder. Now, whether we'd manage this, or say this is a client's just got their own dashboard with their own companies sitting in this. So you've got documents, and I'll just go through this sort of in a logical order. Now, the nice thing about documents is you can add documents to this. So this is all secure, sitting on a SaaS platform that connects to blockchain, but it's all secure information. So you can add folders, but it's just a really good place to contain all of your information. So here we've got all the share certificates sitting in here. I can add a share certificate. Oops, sorry, didn't go back there. Where are we? Documents. Or things like, you know, my shareholder certificate of incorporation, directors' resolutions and minutes, directors' notices of meetings, directors' register. There's all these different folders, but you can also add folders as well. So it's a nice central location to hold everything.
Yeah.
Then we go to, let's go to the cap table. So obviously in this particular one here, we've got an overview of the cap table. So there's all the shares, 136,000 shares, ordinary common shares, fully diluted. So that if we go into, as you can see up the top here, you can do options, warrants, debentures, loans, don't worry about crowd safe, promissory notes, or safes as we call them. So with shares, we'll go into here. So these are all the share purchases for SME Crowdfunder. Here are all the shareholders. Okay. Now let's say I want to start afresh. So the first thing that I can do is I wanted to add a share instrument. So let's say it was an ordinary share. You can see I've already put ordinary shares in, and they sit under what you call the common. You put either a maximum amount or a no limit. Okay, so once I've established the share instruments, so you've got add the share instrument, you can see here it's ordinary shares, unlimited. Okay, now if I want to purchase the shares, so this is where I would load the investors in. Now you can do a bulk upload, but we're just finalising that at the moment because we just want to make sure that we've got all the entities like trusts and superannuation funds, etc., all built into the system. So we're finalising all that within here at the moment because you can put in companies, etc., but we want to make sure there's specific fields for that. So it's as simple as going and adding a shareholder, holder type, individual corporate. You put their details in, you add them, and that pings them an email telling them what's going on. And then from here, here's your mandatory fields. So Australian dollar, price per share, the quantity, the transaction date. Here you've got your ordinary share. Then you can put an investment round name, certificate, etc. Then at the bottom here, you can go and add a security certificate. So you would simply upload their share certificate and you would create a link to it to that particular person. Okay. Right. And then straight away they're on the share register. It's pretty much that simple. Then you can do the same for options. Okay. So if we exercise an option, we grant an option, And then once again, it's the same sort of process that I just showed you before. And then who are the option holders? And then what are the option transactions? So it does the same for warrants, debentures, and loans. So one of the good things that we're putting together at the moment is in this process that we're building out for the 708 platform, etc. And this is all here. It's not branded as FUNDSITION at this point, but this is a whole process that you go through, and we can actually create terms of loans in here. I'm just trying to see if we go in here, I can show you. Yeah, here you go here. So in the investing process, or for a loan, you can actually go in and create all the terms associated with that, right?
Yep.
And that information will then be also logged into the the cap table, but it'll also sit on blockchain as well. Okay. So to give an example, shares. So these things, core chain ID, core transaction, core SIP, wherever's this little logo, it means it sits on blockchain. Right. So if we'd been through the KYC AML process of the other component of this, then you would get a 64 sort of little character code, and you would see how that sits on the blockchain, ready there if one day you wanted to do some sort of secondary transaction. But the easy thing to move a tokenized equity around is because you've been through KYC AML, it's truth. And once it's truth, it sits on blockchain, can't be undone. So you've got to make sure that that information is correct. Now, let's say, Peter, you wanted to buy shares off me. Well, you need to have KYC AML as well, so that that's truth. And then it's very easy to trade that particular asset. Now, obviously, you still need directors sign off and those sort of things, naturally, because you want to make sure it all it sits within the constitution or the share certificate. So the directors would sign off on that, and then you've got that ability to transact with that asset. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
Then you've got, for instance, a calendar. So showing you before, if I wanted to go and create an event, whether it be, you know, some sort of board meeting, special shareholders meeting, annual general meeting, I can actually save that, and then I can send that out to my all of my shareholders for a meeting. The other thing too, people. So you know, this shows the people in our particular company. So, you know, what are their roles, etc. And you can actually invite a person to the organisation, okay? And what that'll do is ping them. So let's say you're my accountant, I could actually bring you into the system, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of self-contained. If we look at company details, which I do apologise, I should have showed you this first. This is where you put in all the key information. There's a lot of legal entities because it covers a multitude of jurisdictions,
right?
But you just have to make sure that you put in proprietary limited or a publicly unlisted company. It's a private company. What's the name? You don't put in the legal entity, you just put in the name, and then all the mandatory fields, etc. You put all of that in, ASIC information, regulatory number, Australian dollars. So this is what I was telling you about before. So this is the core chain ID. So once you've been through that process, you get your 64 character long, cryptographically secure, sits on what they call the core chain, which is really their blockchain. Who are the officers associated with it? Who are the directors? IP and advisors, that's coming, but then you can have social media in there as well. So you put all of that information in. The next thing is probably I would show you, I've showed you the people, is the IR component. And this is a paid feature. But what this allows you to do is to actually do e-voting, etc. So I could do something like, you know, create a new meeting. Let's say it's an annual general meeting. I put in all the details, or I could do even with this, I could do a media release or wherever. So you put in all the details. choose your participants out of your registry, what are the documents you're sending them, and you can actually e-vote as well. All right, and this has all the signing capabilities, everything that's required. So that's sort of in a nutshell what it is. I said your portfolio will be, well, here's SME crowdfunder. So SME crowdfunder actually has 8,000 of its own shares sitting there owned by the legal entity. So it's got a lot of variables. You know, it's not that hard to get in and do it yourself, to put it together. So if you've only got 5 or 6 shareholders, it's very simple. But I guess the good thing about this is that what it does do, it helps you get your organisation in order. So if you're looking at potentially a capital raising down the track or something, you should actually use this so that one day when you know, potential investors want to see what's going on, it's actually already in here. And you can even add a folder and create a data room. Right, so you know it's kind of nicely self-contained. So one of the companies that we just did a private deal for, you know, she got into the system, she's used it, she's put all of the information in there, and she was a good test case. It was only half a dozen investors taking on some more, but you know she loves the system. It's very, very simple. And then we did an analysis of what she did versus what she had in her spreadsheet, and it all matched perfectly. So that gives you the confidence to then, you know, go ahead and actually to use the platform from there on. So that's pretty much how it works.
If you had a crowdsourced funding company that had 1,000 shareholders, because they're all retail investors, and they wanted to send a quarterly report to the shareholders, that can all be dispatched through this, can it?
Yeah, so then that goes back to your IR function here.
Right.
Okay, so shareholder list, upload potential, any reports, media releases, meetings. So you do it all through here. Now the IR is a paid facility, which is about, I think it's about $1,500 a year. So you get everything else for free, right?
Okay.
But if you want to use the IR, that's what you're paying for.
Yeah. Oh, well, if you did what I said, 6 times a year, to cost you more than $1,500, wouldn't it? Organising things.
Yeah, definitely. So it makes it really simple to manage all of your shareholders.
Will it process dividend payments?
We're looking at that at the moment. So we're talking to another registry to potentially offer an overlay. So what would happen is the first thing we're looking at the moment is, so this is really what you're talking about, is acting as a proper registry. So the first thing is the ASIC integration. And then the second thing would be what you're talking about, is being able to process payments. So we're in discussions with another company that does those types of things, that has a share registry. It's certainly probably not as comprehensive from a UX user perspective as this. And we would put an overlay over the top, because obviously when you get into that world, there's more human resource, human capital required to manage it all. So we're in discussions with those guys at the moment of how we could piece that together. So, and what you're talking about is probably, you know, larger shareholder base, you know, fairly decent size companies, potentially publicly unlisted companies, all that sort of thing. So this can handle that, but yeah, we definitely, those other little functions, well, they're not little, but those other significant functions we need to be able to manage as well, so that then we can be, you know, a proper registry service.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you go back to this, you can see then that what we're trying to do is, you know, create more of an ecosystem, okay, where we offer more than just a simple, you know, crowdfunding opportunity. Because the other thing to be mindful of is, if you have a good quality company in Australia that are domiciled in Australia, there is an exemption with 506C that allows you to raise capital for that Australian entity, as long as it's only accredited investors.
Oh, okay, right. Accredited, that's sophisticated, is it, in America?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And mind you, there's 13.5 million of them. So
Half
it's a big
Australia's
market.
population.
Yeah, so it's a big market.
Yeah.
So anyway, do you think this might? I think this might, resonate with some of your accounting and SME network where they can get in and use it.
Yeah. What I'm thinking of is I'm doing an update on our product package, which we call crowdsource funding. We're making some changes, and I'm putting it under a new banner heading called equity capital raising. So it covers ESIC and 708 and crowdsource funding, and potentially I imagine this new fund the government's setting up is basically going to be 708 type investments. Do you know anything about that, the Australian Business Growth Fund?
Yeah, no, I've heard about it, but once again, we just, there's a difference.
Yeah, I don't know where it's got to be 708, which obviously means they're definitely after sophisticated investors, and they can only get 20 of them, and 2 million, which doesn't. There must be some other amendments proposed in that, because they're talking about more than $2 million capital raise when I think about it. But anyhow, they've got to get it through the Senate first. Oh, they've got that through the Senate. They've got to get their board organised. I must admit, I was reading something else last night, but that was on research and development, where the government's having trouble in the Senate. Okay.
I had something here with equity funding. So here we've done a guidelines around 708, so people understand that. So you've looked at your 708, section 701, which is a small scale long offering, which is the 2012 rule. But also, you've got the raising capital under 7088, which is sophisticated investors. And that's, that's where you use sophisticated, but, that's kind of, you can raise a lot more. But you can't have more than 50 non-employee shareholders, so it's kind of capped at 50 before you get into that.
Can you raise more than 2 million under 7088?
Yep.
Oh, okay. I've never done that. I didn't realize. Oh, okay. I didn't realize.
Yeah. Yeah, you can. So the one that people tend to use are really these two. And if you look at section 708 down here, you've got existing shareholders, senior shareholders, professional investors. But, the one you really focus on is, well, if it's going to be under 2 and you want some retail component, you'd use section 708 1. And then if you want to raise more, but stay under the 50 shareholder mark, then you're looking at section 708 8.
Okay.
And then you're getting into kind of publicly unlisted territory, which, to be honest, I'm not quite sure about how that works. So these really are the two that you're working with. And I think that's why I put all this information in, because it's really important. Most people don't really know the parameters of how it all works. So that's why I think it's just good to have that information.
Oh, yeah, and hopefully interest in all this is going to grow. So you've got a good facility there. And sometimes I've had accountants say to me, some accountants are very negative, as you probably know. Our client's going to go to all this trouble. Who's going to look after share registers? Who's going to do all these things?
That's why we've got all this.
You've got a system, and they can come and talk to you.
Yeah. And so once we're finished, we'll have a section 708 platform that they can use themselves. And if they actually wanted to, they can actually brand it. So let's say company Good Times wants to raise some money under 708, and let's say it's under this one, 708 sophisticated investors, and it's going to be under 50 investors. They want to raise it. We go, well, there you go. There's a platform for you to use. There's a cost for that. But they could also create their own private label. So for an additional cost, it can be branded up. Yeah. So it's Good Times offering.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, they can send that out to all their client base or whatever, and have it as their own sort of a deal. Otherwise, we can put it on the FUNDSITION platform as a private offering, or if they want us to expose it to our investor base, we could do that as well. So there's quite a few different types of functions that we're able to operate once we all bed this down.
Okay. Well, in our material that I write for accountants, which is really guidelines to alert them that these things are there to save them doing hundreds of hours of research. Are you interested if I basically I'll get from you an introduction as to what you're doing, which we can post on our site, and then they can link across if they're interested in getting further information from you?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I want to do is just with the cap table and stuff, we just there's a few little things that we're ironing out over the next few days, and that really comes back to making sure that the automated responses that, you know, once you're a shareholder and it pings you, that automated response is all branded up FUNDSITION. So all those things should be finalised next week. The 708 platform will take a little bit longer, not too far away, but I would think that probably as of next week, people could certainly start talking to us.
I'm not talking next week, but I'm talking about a month's time. We're doing a review. I've had a review undertaken of our website. I think there's going to be there's going to be a significant change, or there should be, in accountant services from now on. I don't know if you look at the Commonwealth Bank reports, they have a special publication which they've come out, and from their research of accountants, they've identified that what accountants call business advisory services is the product that they're going to be doing most of their work in the next 12 months now. It'd be interesting to see if they do. So we're just recharging some of our things, getting them up to date, updating with what's gone on in the last 4 or 5 months. So my plan is to have that finished in about 4 weeks' time. And if you've got all yours done by then, and we can then in effect have something on our site. Now we've got articles from all sorts of other people on our sites, and then we link through to them. And if they can link through to you, because I don't want to get involved in anything you've just shown me. All we are is really a conduit of informing accountants who are interested, who've subscribed to our product, that these avenues exist.
Yeah, no, we can do that easily. In fact, you know what I can do? I can probably put together for you a web page, right, with a link that sort of, you know, maybe shows our ecosystem and what we actually offer, right? And then they can just reach out and contact us.
Right.
And then within that page, you know, we can have a link to say the regulations around 708, and just have that as one single page that they can go to as a resource. And that's very easy for us to do.
Okay, righto. Okay, so we might talk again in a few weeks' time on that, if that's okay.
Absolutely, and I think you've got me on for next week.
Is that next week? Is it? Yeah. Thanks for that.
The 24th.
Yeah, we did have a roster, but with rosters, people get called away and whatever. Yeah, the 24th, is it? Yeah. Now that's for accountants, so you can go through the whole system then if you want to. And I'm the other speaker with you that day. I'm going to be talking about business advisory services, just what it means and how they can take this opportunity. Because if they don't, there's a lot of challenges out there for accountants. And I'm hearing stories of what's happening in the UK at present, where they're basically moving or have moved and eliminated most types of tax returns. That's going to happen in Australia one day, and maybe this virus is going to increase the likelihood of that occurring in the next year or so, I'd say.
Well, you know, I worked in Japan for 5.5 years, and you don't do tax returns. It's just, you know, the system's just so much better. You know, there's obviously they're very good at I guess compliance along the way. So, you know, compliance is never ending, but there's not this big stack at the end where everyone's, you know, because they probably, in Japan, they probably struggle to get everyone to do it. But yeah, it's a very good system.
Yeah, well, New Zealand hasn't lodged wage earner tax returns unless they want to for 6 or 7 years, 8 years. So a bit like crowdsourced funding, I think Australia's playing catch up. And you'd wonder why.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think it'll get there eventually, but
and what that's going to do is change the whole composition of the public accounting industry. Because a lot of people only go to an accountant now because they've got to get a tax return done.
Yeah,
it's not helping them running their business. There's no value add in that.
Yeah, no, you want to be in the business of providing, advice and within that strategy to get the best out of it. I mean, the conversations I have with my accountant, which is Nick, my partner, his team, it's all around, it's around advice, got nothing to do with anything else. So interesting, but all right. Well, thanks for letting me run you through that.
Yeah, that was interesting. Thanks. Do you want a copy of the recording sent through to you?
Yeah, why not?
I'll send you the link, and in the next couple of days. And thanks for that. And I'll just go through and share it with my team. Yeah. And we'll work out how we can interface our material with it. Then I'll come back to you in 3 or 4, say 4 weeks time, eh?
Yeah. Well, I'll give you a call mid next week or Wednesday, just around Friday.
Okay. Yeah. Right, yeah. Right on. Thanks, Nigel.
All right. Okay. Have a good day.
Bye bye.